Happy Wednesday, everybody. I hope that you are having a good day and a good first half of the week. Mine's been pretty decent. However, I did get burned again today at work. Of course, it happens every other week, honestly, I think. Um, so I have a lot to get to today. There's some updates about some things that have happened in the past that I want to cover and talk about what's happening now. And I'm going to just jump right into it just because there's a lot to get to. So, if you'll remember, um, Chris Harrison, who hosted The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, um, was canceled because he defended a contestant who was on the show last season, I think it was, or that I'm not sure. I think it was last season. And they pulled up a picture of her at an antebellum party when she was in college. There's nothing wrong with an antebellum party. It's not celebrating slavery. All it is it's just celebrating the South. Okay, let's be honest. It wasn't a problem, you know, until probably I would say 5 minutes ago, but to be technical, really 5, 6 years ago, this would not have ever been an issue because it wasn't an issue until the Democrats and BLM started making these issues. They're non issues, they really are. Anyway, he was canceled. He apologized for it, which was dumb. You don't ever apologize when you've done nothing wrong, especially not to the mob. So, update on that. He is threatening to expose the dirty laundry of The Bachelor, so he receives an 8-figure payoff. I think he should do it anyway. Let's see what it says. This is Yahoo News. This is by Laura Bradley. It says, it appears The Bachelor has given Chris Harrison his final rose. The longtime host will exit the ABC franchise he has hosted since 2002, Deadline reports, after defending a contestant's racist behavior in an extra TV interview with the first black bachelorette, Rachel Lindsay. In return, the trade reports Harrison will walk away with the mid-range 8-figure settlement in exchange for his silence. Just a quick comment on that. It was not racist behavior. Okay, he didn't defend racist behavior. Um, and anyway, all I can say is this, okay? Let's say that someone did something racist in their past, but they learned from it. They apologized to whoever it affected at the moment in time that they were that way, and they are a different person. They're clearly good people now. You know, their track record proves that they're good people and that they care about everybody. Do we honestly cancel people for the behavior of the past if they have since become better people? I'm not saying that she did anything wrong, but what I'm saying is on the premise that she I mean, how far back do we go? Does it matter if it's been 20 years? We're still going to ruin their lives? At some point, you got to draw the line, right? You can't pull up someone's past from 20 years ago and say, "Yep, they're this or they're that," when they have 20 years of being someone completely different from the lessons that they learned. So it says, Harrison's representatives have, according to Deadline, been increasingly intense in increasingly intense negotiations over the past few days with WBTV and to a lesser extent the Disney owned ABC, with Monday's Bachelorette premiere serving as a quasi deadline for negotiations. Harrison's lawyer, Brian Friedman, allegedly threatened to unleash the Shiva of lawsuits exposing a swath of The Bachelor's alleged dirty laundry should Harrison receive an insufficient settlement. The Bachelorette's 17th season premiered Monday night. Who cares? With performer bachelorettes Taisha Adams and Caitlin Bristow on board as temporary co-hosts. The episode awkwardly evaded any discussion of Harrison or Matt James, whose season as the first Black Bachelor imploded when discussion of his eventual winner, Rachel Kirkconnell's past racist behavior, broke out in mainstream conversation. So her name is Rachel Kirkconnell, and I'm only reading the article. However, I don't believe her actions were racist, but I'm just reading what the article says. So, um, I don't know. Um, they said that she wore offensive Halloween costumes, and screenshots that seemed to indicate Kirkconnell had liked offensive social media posts, including one of two women posed in front of a Confederate flag. Oh my God! How dare somebody pose in front of a Confederate flag? Oh, that's so terrible. Get over it. That's the problem I have. That's the problem I have because for a very long time there was no issue with the Confederate flag from anybody. And let me just say this. If you want to learn more about really the Civil War and the true causes of it and why it was fought, Um, slavery ending is a byproduct of the Civil War. It was not the sole purpose. In fact, it wasn't even the cause at all. It was about states' rights. You just actually have to do some research into true history because, people tend to like to rewrite it to benefit their agenda. It was about states' rights, and, the South wanted to secede. Now, however, you did have slave owners living in the South, obviously, but you had people living in the South that were not slave owners either. Like every Republican that lived in the South didn't own slaves, but that was their home, and they were willing to fight for their home. It wasn't about slavery. So while you had people fighting in the Confederacy that owned slaves, you still had people that were doing nothing wrong but just trying to live their life without being burdened by the government and were willing to lose their lives to protect the rights of their state and to live freely without the government, cracking down on them, raising their taxes, which was the biggest part of it was the taxes. It really was. And if you don't believe me, that's fine. But this is why a lot of people still hold to the Confederate flag because they know most of the people know what the Civil War was really about. And they also, some people, they had family members, they have a heritage of family that lost their lives in that war. So I don't have a problem with it. It was never a racist thing until also like 5, 6 years ago. So get over it, people. I'm not talking about this. Let's move on to the next one, which is um, another update. So some parents are suing Atlanta after vigilantes shot a little girl during the Rayshard Brooks protest. Now, if you'll remember, Rayshard Brooks was the black man who was drunk fell asleep in the Wendy's drive-thru, and the police showed up, and then, you know, trying to peacefully arrest him, and he begins to resist and act like a an idiot and fight back and ends up getting shot. Okay, so um, the family of Sequoia Turner, I hope that's how you say that, an 8-year-old girl shot by armed vigilantes during last summer's Rayshard Brooks protest has filed a lawsuit against city officials in Atlanta, claiming they allowed an atmosphere of lawlessness, violence, and vigilantism in addition to peaceful protests. Sequoia should be here. None of what we're doing will ever bring our baby back. Her life is priceless, her family said at a press conference on Monday. We deserve justice. Someone needs to be held accountable. And since you can't see the picture, um, she's really, really cute. Little black girl, because it tends to be um, a lot of black children suffer from the lawlessness in these cities where not just where protests are going on because people are rioting in defense of criminals, but just in general in the violent inner cities, which I've been told Atlanta can be, especially certain parts of Atlanta, can be pretty violent. Um, so it tends to be the black children that suffer. But BLM doesn't care about that. Sequoia was killed last July, weeks into protests mourning another tragedy, the police shooting of Rayshard Brooks, a 27-year-old black man who was killed in the parking lot of a Wendy's fast food restaurant. Okay, blah, blah, blah. The site of Mr. Brooks' death became the scene of protests for weeks, including an encampment and armed men blocking the roads. Mr. Mr. Turner, her mother, and a friend approached the site on July 4th. They accidentally tried to make a U-turn and struck a barricade, after which a group began firing into the car. One individual, Julian Conley, 20, has been charged in connection with the killing after turning himself in. His attorneys have insisted he was there and was armed, but didn't fire into the car. The incident began, they continued, because armed individuals at the scene thought people inside the vehicle were firing on them. Oh, no, I think it was just chaos. Following Sequoia's death, the state declared a state of emergency, deployed the National Guard, and the Wendy's franchise was demolished. The suit filed in state court names the city mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, the Atlanta police chief, and others. The murder of Sequoia Turner as a result of senseless gun violence is a tragedy that no family should have to endure. Due to the anticipated litigation, the city will offer no further comment at this time. The young girl's life was one of many lost during last summer's racial protests. Let's just call them violent riots. In Louisville, Kentucky, a popular restaurant owner named David McAtee, known for giving discounts to law enforcement, was killed by police as they enforced a curfew during ongoing protests following Breonna Taylor's death earlier that year. Now I'm curious because I don't. You tell me I can't look at this? Really? I don't know who David McAtee is. Let's see. David McAtee, Louisville, Kentucky. Okay. I don't know what this is about. So, The state's forensic investigation became public on June 9th, 2020. Evidence showed McAtee fired his weapon at officers, revealed by Executive Cabinet Secretary to Governor Andy Bashir J. Michael Brown. Oh, that's right. Brown also said the fatal shot was fired by a National Guard member. McAtee was firing in their direction, and he did it at least twice, and they returned that fire, Brown said. Mr. McAtee's fatal wound came from one of the M4A1 carbines carried by the National Guard, but we cannot identify which carbine and we cannot identify which guardsman fired those shots. Um, so there was body cam footage from the night showing officers clearing the restaurant and interacting with people who were at the scene. The report also showed LMPD Public Integrity Unit interviews with Katie Cruz and Austin Allen. Okay, so clearly they were breaking curfew. Um, and if it's true that he fired a weapon, that's the issue. Firing weapons against police officers, resisting against police officers. That's where these things go wrong. But it seems like every time I see um not black children, because that's aside from that, every time that I hear a story about a black man that's been killed, they've always been doing something criminal. These last few ones that I've heard about, Rayshard Brooks, George Floyd, this man, they were all doing something, breaking some kind of law, and then they end up getting in tussles with police and they die. But you never hear the story, you never hear them ever talk about David Dorn, the police officer, retired police captain, who was killed in St. Louis during the riots last summer. And no one ever talks about that at all. And I don't understand it. Um, so this happened just a year ago. Um, June 2nd, 2020. He was 77. He was a retired police captain. I don't know how many people know about David Dorn. Um, but members of the community gathered in St. Louis to honor the life of him. His wife said that he was the, or his, not his wife, his former partner said he was the best partner you could ever have. Um, and what was really sad was his death was caught on camera, and he was just laying there on the ground bleeding out, and people are just recording, and no one is attempting any type of life-saving measures whatsoever. It's really disgusting, and all because they wanted to loot the store because George Floyd. It's ridiculous. Um, I don't know if this is really important, but it caught my attention, so I thought, well, let's see what this is about. And there's the U.S. Navy bans top recruit Cameron Kenley from playing in the NFL. And the reason it caught my attention is because I saw that apparently others have been allowed. So, Cameron Kinley, a recent graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy and top football recruit, won't be able to defer his commission and play in the NFL, the Navy has announced. The undrafted free agent cornerback expressed his dismay on Monday, saying the decision had crushed his childhood dreams of going pro than serving in the Navy. I have spent the past week processing my emotions, as it is very difficult to have been this close to achieving a childhood dream and having it taken away from me. He had been slated to play as a cornerback for the Super Bowl winning Tampa Bay Buccaneers this fall, alongside all-star quarterback Tom Brady. The young recruit, who was class president of the U.S. Naval Academy and captain of the football team, also pointed out how under a Trump era policy, other future commissioned athletes were allowed to hold off on entering the military to go pro. Well, check that out. So under Trump, they could do it. Not anymore. Um, While I acknowledge these men are from different branches of the armed services, it puzzles me as to why I am the only person to be denied this opportunity. It was my hope to show the value of a service academy education, the benefits of the armed forces, and how being allowed the opportunity of a professional football career while still being committed to future service was a win-win for all. Mr. Kinley was recruited to play for the Navy football program as a high schooler in Tennessee under the expectation he could potentially pursue a pro career alongside his military one. His agent, a fellow Naval Academy graduate and football player named Ryan Williams Jenkins, said he was baffled by the Navy's choice and worried about his client's mental health. If there is a directive and precedent allowing other service academy athletes to pursue this opportunity, what makes Cameron different? He said in a statement. It is possible to note that this could have a long term impact on his mental health going forward. In 2019, the Trump administration ushered in a waiver policy that would let future military officers at the service academies or receiving ROTC commissions play pro sports. As I recently stated, these student athletes should be able to defer their military service obligations until they have completed their professional sports careers. Such cadets and uh, midshipmen have a short window of time to take advantage of their athletic talents during which playing professional sports is realistically possible. The the move reversed a 2017 policy which stopped players from pausing their commission for sports. Our military our military academies, I don't know what that was, exist to develop future officers to enhance the readiness and the lethality of our military service, then DoD spokeswoman Dana White said in a statement. Graduates enjoy the extraordinary benefit of a military academy education at taxpayer expense. Mr. Finley said he hopes to appeal the decision. Um, First of all, I want to say it's really it's not any it doesn't really concern me how this is done. But if you choose a military career, maybe you did it because free education, whatever, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what your reason was. I think that obviously comes first and foremost above playing professional sports. So I don't agree with allowing them to put that on hold, their military career on hold, while they play sports, because that is done in good faith that when they finish, they're going to go and do their military stuff now. However, anything can happen. They can get injured and, not be able to serve anymore. Um, or, look how long professional football players can play from starting at a young age to, I don't know how old the oldest player is. Um, let's see. How old is the oldest pro football player? Um, George Blanda, he played until he was 48. Adam Vinatieri, 47. Morton Anderson, 47. So, I mean, you can see some of these people can play up until they're almost 50 years old. that leaves no time for a military career because now you're too old to, because that's when your military service is most efficient, is when you're young. I mean, come on. Whatever is more important to you, you should do that. But if you sign up for military service, then that's basically like signing your life away until you know, you're out. That's kind of the deal you make. So I disagree. I don't think that they should be allowed to put it on hold. If that's what they chose to do, then that's what they have to do. That's what happens. Um, there was a Baltimore man charged with a hate crime after a rampage against Asian store owners. I think I remember seeing this video. So it was a 50-year-old Baltimore man has been charged with the hate crime and attempted murder after he went on a rampage destroying liquor stores owned by Asian Americans. Daryl Doles, who hit two Korean sisters in the head with a cinder block. I'm sorry, you guys, I'm a little tired. Has been indicted by a grand jury and charged on 22 counts, including 4 of attempted murder and 9 related acts of hate crime. Mr. Doles went on a destructive and hate-filled rampage on May 2nd in Baltimore. State Attorney Marilyn Mobsey told the media, "This crime shocked the conscience of everyone in Baltimore. Today's indictment shows that hate has no home in our city. We commend the victims for their courage and look forward to delivering justice." According to the prosecutors, Mr. Doles was denied entry into one business owned by Asian Americans because he refused to wear a mask, which is COVID-19 safety protocol. He went on to destroy a $1,000 lottery machine installed in the store. He returned to the Linden Discount Liquors and attacked a security guard, following which the owner had to control the situation. Mr. Dole soon fled the spot and went into another store, 4040 Liquors, also owned by Asian Americans. In the second store, he destroyed wine bottles on display. The Baltimore Sun reported that the owner of the store told Mr. Doles not to return to the store, and he replied with F Chinese. He then went to a third store, Wonderland Liquors, and targeted two Asian American sisters, Hai Shin Williams, 67, and Hai Kyung Yoon, 66, and hit them with a cinder block. His actions were caught on a surveillance camera. He hit them in the head repeatedly till they were covered in blood. Mr. Doles was arrested on 6 blocks away from the store. Court documents show that when Mr. Doles was asked why he attacked the sisters, he said, "She shouldn't have came out. They effed your country up, but still you love 'em. F out of here. I won't eat crap out there mother effing stores. I'll order out before I eat that mother effing food." The two sisters are still battling headaches and dizziness, prosecutors said. They had to be hospitalized after the attack. Mr. Doles faces 2 life sentences plus 65 years if convicted on all charges. His attorney, Stacy Pipkin, told the media that he has battled addiction and mental health issues throughout his life. She also accused Mr. Mosby of seeking more serious charges due to media attention in the case. Unfortunately, we have seen that office overcharge cases on a regular basis simply because they want press attention, Ms. Pipkin said. Mr. Doles, meanwhile, remains in custody without bail. Um, I get so tired of people saying, "Oh, he battles addiction. She's got, mental health issues." I get so tired of that always being the defense because it's not always true. And you are minimizing the people that really do have serious mental health issues by saying that everybody who acts out like this and commits a crime is mentally unstable. That they have some people are so coherent. They understand exactly what they're doing, they know what they're doing, and they do it anyway. And I hate to say this. Addiction, no, I don't hate to say this. addiction, drug addiction, alcohol, doesn't matter what you're addicted to. They don't make you do things you wouldn't normally do. What they do is they cause you to be tempted to do things you wouldn't normally do. Your brain thinks differently. So things that you wouldn't normally think about doing, you now think about doing, but you still have to make the choice of whether or not to do it. And you can still make the right choice. Just your brain will think things differently, process things differently, whether it be, stealing to, you know, pay for your habit, whatever. Normally, you would never think about stealing. But because now you're addicted to something and you need the money for a fix, you contemplate stealing. But you still have to make that conscious choice to do that, if that makes sense. So it's not drugs that make you do things. It's they can make your brain think differently, but you still have to make a conscious choice. Um, so I get tired of that defense. I really do. And you notice not one time in this article did they mention race, right? So why didn't they mention race? Could it be possibly because Daryl Doles is black? I mean, is that possibly the reason why? I think it could be. I mean, if it was a white man, that would have been the first thing that they said. 50-year-old Baltimore white man, or 50-year-old white man of Baltimore. That's the first thing they would have said. But because he's black, and it doesn't fit the narrative that white supremacists are committing hate crimes against Asians, when in fact, actually, black on Asian crime is much higher than um, than white on Asian hate crime, um, much higher. But it doesn't fit the narrative, so obviously they can't say that. Can't mention his race. Hopefully, you're not smart enough to go look and see who it is and piece together that that's a black man. Come on, let's honestly get serious here, can we? Mm, it's irritating. Honestly, it is. It gets old. Okay, so this next article that I want to talk about, I only have 5 articles to get through. Okay, so I promise you, I ain't gonna sit here and go through a whole bunch of stories. I know sometimes I can go on and talk a lot, but these are the good ones. I always like to save the best ones for last. So, this is by the Independent. Um, I don't, I never know how to say her first name. Ghislaine Maxwell. Is that how you say it? Her family complains that the prison is breaching UN's Nelson Mandela rules of dignity. So it says the family of disgraced British socialite Ghislaine Maxwell has said that the New York jail in which she is being held violated the United Nations Nelson Mandela rules of dignity for prisons, subjecting her to inhuman treatment. The Twitter account run by the siblings of Ms. Maxwell with the name Real Ghislaine said the conditions she faced in jail are so inhuman, don't they mean inhumane, that they violate the 2015 rules adopted by the U.S. Under the United Nations Standard Minimal Rules adopted in 2015 for the treatment of prisoners, the Nelson Mandela Rules, to which the U.S. is a party, Ghislaine has been subjected to cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment. Someone needs to learn how to write because it keeps saying inhuman. Ms. Maxwell is being held at the Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center on charges of grooming and trafficking underage girls. We know that. Miss Maxwell's brother, Ian Maxwell, previously demanded video footage from his sister's jail, which he described as House of Horrors, after a photo surfaced of her sporting an unexplained black eye. The photo released by Miss Maxwell's lawyers in court filings appeared to show a bruise under her left eye. Well, that could be from anything. I'm looking at it. It's actually pretty small, but that could be from anything, honestly. Um, the 122 United Nations rules to which the U.S. party is party deal with prison maintenance, outlining minimum standards for the treatment of the prisoners, either pretrial or convicted. In another tweet, the family said it is not their claim that rules were breached, but it is a fact. Read Rules 1, 13, 22, 23, 43, 45, and 61 of the Nelson Mandela Rules. The rules were named in the honor of South African anti-apartheid leader Nelson Mandela, who was subjected to hard labor in cells without beds during his time in jail for 27 years. The lawyers of Miss Maxwell have repeatedly accused the New York jail, where she's being held in enhanced security schedule, of mistreating her since her arrest in July 2020. On Miss Maxwell's complaint, they said that the jail subjected her to isolation, dirty drinking water, inadequate food, and waking her up every 15 minutes by directing a flashlight on her face. In April, the attorney said there was a pervasive stench of sewage in Miss Maxwell's unit as the sewage system was broken. The prosecutors responded by saying she doesn't flush her toilet after using it. On Wednesday, Miss Maxwell's bail request was rejected for the fifth time. Yeah, she shouldn't be released on bail. Now, if they are really treating her this way, um, it's hard to have sympathy for someone who was grooming and sex trafficking young girls. It's very hard to have sympathy for these people. However, if they have rules they're supposed to be following, they should be following those rules. So if it is true, they shouldn't be doing it. Um, but she most definitely should not be released on bail. Number one, because I feel like she could be popped off at any moment. Wouldn't surprise me if there's a lot of people out there that would like to see her dead. Um, so I think could be for her safety, but also for the safety of children and young girls. No, she should stay in. So, Australia says that the World Trade Organization should punish Chinese economic coercion. Um, it says that the WTO should penalize bad behavior when it occurs, Australia's Prime Minister said Wednesday, ahead of a group of 7 leaders meeting in Britain where he hopes to garner support in a trade dispute with China. Prime Minister Scott Morrison said Australia would be working with others to buttress the role of the WTO and to modernize its rulebook where necessary. In my in my discussions with many leaders, I have taken great encouragement from the support shown for Australia's preparedness to withstand economic coercion in recent times, Morrison said in a speech delivered in the Australian west coast city of Perth before leaving for the G7 meeting in Cornwall. The Australian government announced in December it would ask the WTO to intervene in its dispute with China over barley and expects other nations to become involved in the case. China effectively ended imports of Australian barley in May 2020 by putting tariffs of more than 80% on the crop, accusing Australia of breaching WTO rules by subsidizing barley production and selling the grain in China at below production costs. Trade in Australian seafood, wood, beef, wine, and coal has also been disrupted since Australia angered China by requesting an independent inquiry into the origins of the coronavirus pandemic. Oh, so Australia's doing their own independent investigation. Well, good for them. The Geneva-based WTO, which makes rules governing international trade, is facing calls for restructuring and reform as it struggles to forge a long-awaited World Trade Pact. A well-functioning WTO that sets clear rules, arbitrates disputes objectively and efficiently, penalizes bad behavior when it occurs. This can be one of the most powerful tools the international community has to counter economic coercion, Morrison said. U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said last month that the U.S. will not leave Australia alone to face coercion from China and that such behavior toward U.S. allies will hamper improvement in relations between Washington and Beijing. Morrison said in his speech the most practical way to address economic coercion would be to restore the WTO's binding dispute settlement system. Where there are no consequences for coercive behavior, there is little incentive for restraint, Morrison said. The G7 meeting provides an opportunity to point a way forward at a WTO ministerial conference on trade reforms in November, he said. Well, I'm I'm glad that Australia, is digging into their own independent research about COVID because, it's just somebody needs to find out what was going on. Um, but it, I don't know. I'm tired of people bowing down to China and the fact that Anthony Blinken said what he said about standing beside Australia against China. It's hard to know if you can believe those words or if they're just said for show because we all know how weak that the Biden administration is on China. They're pretty cozy. So it's really hard to know. And I don't know. Um, so moving on, Andrew Lloyd Webber. So Phantom of the Opera, like that is my most favorite musical that he did. He's prepared to be arrested over theater reopening. So it says Andrew Lloyd Webber has said he is determined to open his theaters on June 21st, even if he risks being arrested. The impresario's West End production of Cinderella is scheduled to begin previews on June 25th, 4 days after so-called Freedom Day. We are going to open, come hell or high water, he told the Telegraph. The government has said it will make a judgment soon on whether to proceed with the lifting of lockdown restrictions on June 21st. According to reports, that date may be pushed back by the government due to concerns over the impact of COVID-19 variant. Theaters are currently able to operate with reduced capacities and socially distanced audiences. Lord Lloyd Webber, oh, that's a tongue twister. Lord Lloyd Webber has previously insisted that productions like his large scale musicals are impossible under those restrictions. The 73-year-old told the Telegraph he is prepared to be arrested if authorities try to intervene in his reopening plans. We will say, come to the theater and arrest us, the Evita and Phantom of the Opera composer is quoted as saying. The theater mogul said he may have to sell his 6 West End venues if the government does not relax its restrictions. The pandemic has had a catastrophic financial impact on the theater industry, and many have remained closed despite the ease in COVID-19 measures. If the government ignore their own science, we have the mother of all legal cases against them, Lord Lloyd Webber continued. If Cinderella couldn't open, we'd go. Look, either we go to law about it or you'll have to compensate us. We can open safely. Speaking to Radio 4's Today program on Wednesday, he called on the government to stop penalizing the live music and theater sector. We can open safely, the impresario insisted. Please, please, let us get open. He claimed that recent pilot events had shown there was no chance of infection being passed, provided certain protocols are maintained. The government has yet to publish the results of its test event program, which include having a live audience at last month's Brit Awards. Oh, of course, the Brit Awards could have a live audience. Cinderella was due to open last August, but is now scheduled to have its opening night at the Gillian Lynn Theatre on July 14th. Lord Lloyd Webber also has plans to relaunch his productions of The Phantom of the Opera and Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. We have to abide by the rules. Community Secretary Robert Jenrick said on Wednesday he completely sympathized with the impresario and those in the theater sector. We want to get them open. We are doing pilots, he told Sky News. We want to get those theaters open so great new productions like Cinderella can open. But you have just got a few more days to wait until the judgment that the Prime Minister is going to make on the basis of the data. When asked if Lord Lloyd Webber should be arrested if he does open theaters without restrictions relaxing, Mr. Jenrick said, "We all have to abide by the rules." Lord Lloyd Webber is the owner of 7 London theaters, one of which he is currently in the process of selling. No, that's a lie. We don't all have to abide by the rules. It's whoever they choose has to abide by the rules and the others that don't. But I think it's great. I hope he does it. And I hope that they, try to arrest him and he sues the crap out of them. Because the thing is, they say that, you got to follow the science. Well, their science says that there's nothing wrong with reopening your business, and especially people are in their science. If you're vaccinated, you're safe. So there should be no reason that they can't open. Absolutely not. Um, the two bigger stories that I wanted to cover. First, I want to tell you about a professor at Yale and how she's a psychopath. And then I want to read you the last article. But the point of doing it like that um, is to see the irony in the words that are spoken. Okay. So, a former professor, um, oh no, this isn't what I wanted to read. I didn't want to read about the professor slamming the Yale person. Hang on. That's what I want. Okay. So, Dr. Aruna Kili- Kilanani, um, she made the remarks at the Ivy League institution's Child Study Center on April 6th. Um, so this was on April 6th. It was at a child study center. Started out with um, some stuff. She just said some stuff. Okay. So she said, I was trying to see if I could find the very beginning of her statement, but she said that she um, has a fantasy where she shoots everything white in sight or anybody white standing in her way. I'm going to have to go try and pull up the other article because this isn't the one I wanted and I can't do it justice without actually. Okay. Man, I hate these stupid blocked ones. Okay, well, we'll just do the New York Post. Okay, so she campaigned for weeks to get Yale to publicly release her talk on race, but she likely didn't anticipate the backlash her fantasies of unloading a revolver into the head of any white person that got in my way, quote unquote, would generate. So she begged for this talk to be released, and she is getting some backlash, obviously. Um, the Manhattan shrink was targeted across the. Okay, hang on. Can we just appreciate the irony here that in the column next to this, that's about more on racism, says that Hunter Biden repeatedly called his white lawyer the N-word, text show. Huh. Okay. I'm sorry. I just saw that. I had to. Okay. So the Manhattan shrink, so she's a psychiatrist, was targeted across the internet from health ratings websites to Twitter and TikTok for her April 6th race hating comments to the Ivy League institution's Child Study Center. I'm surprised that it took this long to get that out. This was done 2 months ago, and we're just now hearing about it. I'm surprised. Um, Her lecture, The Psychopathic Problem of the White Mind. How about the psychopathic problem of your mind? But the psychopathic problem of the white mind not only included daydreams of gunning down white people, but also dismissed the possibility that any of her targets could empathize with people of color or understand racism. She said, quote, addressing racism assumes that white people can see and process what we are talking about. We keep forgetting that directly talking about race is a waste of our breath, Kalani stated in the incendiary speech. We are asking a demented, violent predator who thinks that they are a saint or a superhero to accept responsibility. It ain't gonna happen. They have 5 holes in their brain. It's like banging your head against a brick wall. Kilanani, who cannot be reached for comment Saturday, also said she'd walk away from such a shooting with the bounce in my step, and that white people make my blood boil and are out of their minds and have been for a long time. Her remarks were made public Friday. One Yale professor criticized her online. The racism expressed by Dr. Aruna Kilanani is deeply worrisome and counterproductive, posted Nicholas Christakis, a physician and professor of social and natural science at the Connecticut Institution. Of course, as an invitee, she is free to speak on campus, but her views must be soundly rejected. Um, I don't believe that that kind of speech should be tolerated. Absolutely not. Not racist speech, and especially not if you have white people sitting in the audience listening. Just imagine if that were a white person that said those things about black people and the uproar. It wouldn't have taken 2 months for that to surface. It would have surfaced immediately. And just if you want to see how horrible it sounds, if you don't think it sounds horrible enough that it's white people, just go on Rumble, look up Louder with Crowder's episode from today, and listen to them read these same quotes, just interchanging white and black. And they're both horrible. But apparently, for some reason, people seem to think that when it's white people, it's okay. Um, it's not. And the only way you need to know if something is racist, if you aren't bright enough to figure that out on your own, because that's easy to know. But if you're ever unsure, just change out white to black, and then you'll know. But you shouldn't have to do that. You should know. And you should know what racism is and what it sounds like. This is racist against white people. And it's also like violence, like a threat of violence. Um, but if you want to hear the quotes read like that, and in in a joking way, just kind of making fun of how ridiculous this whole thing is and that she was allowed to speak. Um, you can go find it on Rumble. You will not find that episode on YouTube today. I was actually in the middle of watching it, and in real time, I watched YouTube take that video down. It just all of a sudden it quit working, and I kept hitting retry, and I couldn't. And so I restarted YouTube, and I go back in, and the video's missing. In real time, I watched him get taken down. It's ridiculous. So you can't find it on Rumble, though. Continuing on. That mild rebuke was outdone on multiple health websites, including Health Grades, where some threw her words back at her in 1-star reviews. Once, when I was having trouble with my teenage daughter, I made an appointment One such review dated Saturday read, "The minute I walked in and she saw I was white, she unloaded a revolver in my head." One Rate MD, she was called racist and an avowed future murderer and bigot, full stop. Um, Jason Carrara said, "When I entered her office, she put a revolver to my head and said I needed to play 5 rounds of Russian roulette before I could get an appointment." This is great. And just so we know, if you search her now on Google, her it says Dr. Aruna Kilanani, MD, public bathroom in New York City, New York, permanently closed. So, I mean, she's getting a lot of crap. John says, great place to go to get your brains blown out. Only if you're white, of course. Um, People who hate as much as her should not be allowed to practice, another one said. One of multiple calls for her medical license to be revoked. That would require an investigation by the state's medical conduct program. Well, make phone calls if that's what you want to happen. It's not clear if accusations of racism would meet the criteria set out on the state health department's website, which state complaints about a physician's communication skills, attitude, or bedside manner do not generally fall under the jurisdiction of the board. A frequent poster to Twitter and TikTok, Kilanani went silent on social media since her speech blew up after it was posted on the Substack online platform of former New York Times opinion writer Bari Weiss, along with an interview of Kilanani conducted by writer and podcaster Katie Herzog. Tim Glenn also wrote a review that said, "Wanted to unload a revolver in my head because of the color of my skin. Would not recommend." The comments from the NYU and Columbia trained psychiatrists and psychologists contradict statements on her website about her welcoming practice. There, she issues a call to outsiders, promising her office as a meet point and humble sanctuary for all kinds of people. "Whoever you are and wherever you come from, our world is better because of you," she states on the site. Conservative, liberal, old, young, blue, black, cis, trans, Asian, fat, skinny, rural, urban, B-baller, international, expat, rapper, queer, white, Muslim, biker, rocker, lax player, atheist, Trump supporter, Darwinist, Trump hater. All are welcome at the meet point. First of all, if you feel the need that you have to put that in your whatever section of your website you would put that in, you shouldn't have to say all people are welcome. Everybody should know that a medical professional welcomes everybody unbiased. I mean, come on. That should have been a big flag, a red flag right there to anybody that she's got a problem with people. Not every comment was attacking Kilanani. One anonymous user on TikTok called her comments so inspiring and said she was speaking to my own experiences. So there's more of them. "Don't let these people suppress your voice," the user posted. "It's so important." But the vast majority rejected her remarks. "You sound as ignorant and racist as a white supremacist," wrote another user. "You should lose your medical license." So, with this story in mind, and the fact that, she is a liberal woman, clearly she's a Democrat. With that story in mind, of her saying she has fantasies of shooting white people and walking away with a bounce in her step, you know, yay. Um, Sounds pretty soulless, yes? Does this woman have a soul? Um, you would say that Democrats, most of them, seem not to have souls. The irony is that Obama, which I wish he'd go away, he's irrelevant, but Obama says that he never thought dark spirits would take over the Republican Party. We have to worry. So far, all I've seen are liberals with dark spirits, with the way that they act, the way they talk, the things that they do. They are the ones that seem to be covered in dark spirits. So it's just very ironic that Obama, who I think is also has a dark spirit himself, would say that it's the Republican Party. So let's see what he has to say. Obama criticized Republicans for embracing Trump's lies about the 2020 election. We have to worry when a major political party spreads conspiracy theories, Obama said. The comments came during an interview with CNN's Anderson Cooper on Monday night. So, former President Barack Obama, in a CNN interview, expressed concerns about the current state of American democracy and criticized the Republican Party for embracing Donald Trump's lies. We have to worry when one of our major political parties is willing to embrace a way of thinking about our democracy that would be unrecognizable and unacceptable even 5 years ago or a decade ago. Can't really do an impression. Feel like I almost kind of got his cadence, but I don't know. Republicans have been cowed into accepting Trump led conspiracy theories that the race was rigged, which culminated in the January 6th Capitol walkthrough. It says insurrection, but I'm calling it a walkthrough. During the 2020 campaign, several Republican lawmakers spread falsehoods about the election and eventually challenged the results in Congress, mere hours after a violent pro Trump mob laid siege to the Capitol. Just love the way they paint it. Um, but they're not false. They're doing audits and they're finding fraud as we speak. So they're not false claims. I didn't expect that there would be so few people who would say, well, I don't mind losing my office because this is too important. America is too important. Our democracy is too important, Obama said. We didn't see that. Obama added that he never thought the dark spirits he witnessed forming within the GOP over his 2 terms as president, such as xenophobia, anti intellectualism, paranoid conspiracy theories, and an antipathy toward black and brown folks, would take over the party. Let's just be honest and point out that anytime a Democrat accuses a Republican of something, it's projection because it is, in fact, the Democrat doing what they're accusing the Republican of doing. Just thought I'd throw that out there. I thought that there were enough guardrails institutionally that even after Trump was elected, that you would have the so-called Republican establishment push back on him, Obama said. He went on to cite examples of Republicans towing the line with Trump, including when many refused to speak out against his 2017 comments that there were fine people on both sides of a neo Nazi rally in Charlottesville, which, for like the millionth time that people have explained, that clip was taken out of context. They only took a small portion. And he condemned Nazis and white supremacy in that same exact speech. But he said people that were protesting to have the statue removed and people who were protesting to have it left up, that they were fine people. Just because they were in disagreement about what should be done, they weren't bad people. But he condemned Nazis and white supremacists. But they didn't show that whole clip. That's a little beyond the pale, Obama said. Obama's comments came during a wide ranging CNN interview in which he also discussed divisions in the country related to race and the media. I'm I'm still the hope and change guy. My hope is that the tides will turn, Obama said. Yeah, I can't do a um, Obama impression. I can't. So, very ironic that um, that he would say that dark spirits have taken over the Republican Party because let's be honest, the Democrats are pretty heartless, soulless, demonic beings at some points. So I don't know. I'm not saying that a Republican can't be dark spirited. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying it's ironic that Obama, of all people, would be calling that out and knowing that it's really not true. So I'm just Obama's so irrelevant. It's like, why does he even talk anymore? You notice who you don't really hear much from anymore because she's irrelevant? Clinton, Hillary Clinton. You don't see her popping up to get her little 5 minutes of fame. Obama, you're irrelevant. You mean nothing. You served as a terrible president, and I don't know why you feel like you need to run your mouth anymore. Go retire and go spend time with your kids. I know. That's all I'm saying. I just found another story though that I think I'm going to cover though on Thursday. About Obama opens up about daughters' activism. They're not just making noise. I'm going to research the way he talks, and maybe next time I can have a better impression. Anyway, we will be right back. Anybody who's watching on YouTube, just know that I have a Facebook that you can follow me on. I just got to say something, and an email, gotta say something 21 at gmail.com. You can follow me on my subreddit, just gotta say something, and um, it's a lot of fun. I'm trying to start new things, and this is obviously going to be my first video to be putting up on YouTube. However, if you go find my podcast on Google, Spotify, and other places where you can get podcasts, I have many more episodes before this one. And I hope that you enjoyed it. I would like to hear about what you thought in the comments below. And please like and subscribe and share. Uh, this is all new to me, so I don't really know what else to do. Eventually, I intend to get a camera, but for now, you get my screen recording so you can at least see the stuff that I'm showing and talking about. And I don't know. So I'm excited for feedback about this first video. So this will be fun. Anyway, have a really good day, you guys.